Hello there. Welcome to the Senate Podcast, episode number 4. And today I'm joined by Dylan, the Savant Smasher Riggin. How's it going?
I'm all right. How are you today?
I'm great. I hate technical difficulties. And the good thing about podcasts is when you put it out in post, you cut out all of the technical difficulties. But behind the scenes, nothing wants to work right the minute you hit record. So this week, we're talking the 2 biggest releases of the year. Move over God of War. Move over Elden Ring. We're talking about Sonic and Pokemon. So before we get into the items of discussion and the topic, and before I ask you what you've been playing, I got to tell you a little bit about the podcast. Podcast will be out weekly on all streaming platforms, including YouTube. That's Spotify, Apple Podcast, and Google Podcast. I believe we get the most views on Spotify. You're going to get a 2-for-1 on YouTube, essentially. But we're also on all the other platforms. And that's it for the, shameless self-promotion. And what I'll do is I'll actually start off on what I've been watching lately, because I just want to piggyback off of last week. I finished Andor episode 10, so I'm caught up to date. And what an episode. Have you seen it?
I have not.
Okay. Andor episode 10. All I'm going to say is Andy Serkis, however you want to pronounce it. He is amazing. And then him in Star Wars is perfect. He fits Star Wars perfectly. And I saw somebody make the connection on Twitter where he plays Caesar in Planet of the Apes. And essentially Caesar is leading a rebellion. And his character in Andor has a great arc, and he ends up kind of leading a rebellion in Andor to break out of this prison. Episode 10 of Andor, and really 9 and 10, it's some of the greatest Star Wars ever. Like, Andor became my favorite Star Wars show after this. And I think there's still 2 episodes left to go. So we will spoil that completely one day, but that's just where I'm at with that. And I've also been watching another really interesting sci-fi show. Not a show, it's a movie. It's called Oblivion. It's a Tom Cruise movie that came out, I believe, 2013. Have you ever seen this movie?
I have not personally, no.
I started watching it because I remember watching it in theaters when it came out, and it's actually a very interesting take on a sci-fi world. And I tweeted out, I was like, Oblivion better than Dune, because Dune was a release, it was an older movie. They released it this year kind of as a reboot, and I know a lot of people love Dune, but to me it's just not great. It's actually good sci-fi. Yeah, I'm just not a fan of the way they do it or like the world. I think the sci-fi in it's interesting, but
I'm not a big cyberpunk fan, is why I think it just doesn't bring me in too much.
Okay. That whole like wasteland but also futuristic type thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's how Oblivion is, but dude, Oblivion's so good, probably because it has Tom Cruise and Morgan Freeman in it. You can't go wrong with them too. But I've been watching that on Netflix, and that's pretty good. Pretty good sci-fi. And then to end it, I've been playing Modern Warfare 2. Sadly, not the best one. I've been playing the new one. It's an interesting game.
How does it compare to that one? Like,
okay, so the new Modern Warfare 2, I think it fundamentally plays very well. I think it is technically and mechanically a great game. The content isn't really there. I'll save the multiplayer for last. I haven't jumped into the story, so I won't say anything on that. But the Spec Ops missions, I absolutely hate them. The Spec Ops missions are one of the coolest things about Modern Warfare 2, the OG one, because no other Call of Duty game did co-op or Spec Ops or whatever like how the OG Modern Warfare 2 did it. I jumped into Spec Ops on the new Modern Warfare 2, and they're like, all right, boys, we're going to Halo jump into the battlefield. I'm like, oh, this is about to be really cool. I love Halo jumping in games. Like, you just run out the back of a plane and you jump and dive down. They're like, all right, boys, we're entering the AO. And then all you hear is, doo, doo, doo. I'm like, is that the battle bus? The plane starts flying over and you drop in like it's Warzone. I'm like, this isn't Halo jumping. This is the battle buses dropping me off for school. So I quit. I rage quit after I saw that. I'm done. They essentially just made a Warzone map, put down 3 markers, and they were like, yeah, run to the markers and grab stuff. This isn't creative, in Fortnite. Besides that, the multiplayer, I really like the maps. I would say I like the guns, but listen to this. The worst part. Your gun progression, you want to level you like the AK? You want to level it up? You can't level it up by using the AK. The way you level up the AK is by using all of the other guns. So progression for one weapon is locked behind progression for multiple other weapons. Like I'm using the first one that you unlock or the first one that they give you. And I reach a point where I'm like, okay, I'm level like 7 with my gun. I'm trying to level it up to get the attachments. Oh no, you have to be level 10 with a gun that you unlock. My assault rifle, I have to be level 10 with an LMG that I unlock when I'm level like 35 to unlock an attachment on level 10 of the first gun I get. Something weird like that. So I get it. It actually makes you use other weapons that normally might not be used. So I get it. But at the same time, you have to grind quick in that game because if you get too far behind, everybody you play with is going to have everything unlocked, and it just makes it that much harder for you. Because I'm jumping in the maps with pea shooters. I have a Nerf gun, and I'm going up against people with real weapons. So I just feel like I'm behind, and it's just so hard to unlock stuff in the multiplayer. But I think they do that to keep you invested in it. I'm enjoying it actually, but I'm just adjusting to the differences in this new game. I will report back with more information on that. But that's what I've been into this week. What have you been watching? We'll start with that.
What have I been watching? That's sadly, at least this week, have not had the time to watch a lot. I did watch one thing this morning, but
Save that. Don't
yeah, I am going
talk
to
about
save
that.
that.
Save that for later in the show.
Yeah, that's
So what we're
about
gonna
it.
do is we're gonna talk about what you've been watching as a topic of the show. So tell me what you've been playing.
Well, just this week, Halo Infinite's winter update launched.
And that, yeah, the winter update for Halo, that's including Forge, right?
It includes the Forge beta,
Okay.
and as well as co-op campaign and a new battle pass, which is like a free battle pass. And this one has the Mark V helmet at the end of it. The good old Michael J. Caboose helmet.
I've been seeing it all over Twitter.
Oh, dude.
Surprisingly.
Everybody wants to be Caboose. But talking about like Forge is good. It's good. Sadly, we can't they don't load correctly in the custom games lobby yet. File share is not great. It doesn't work correctly. And it is just the Forge beta, so I give them slack for that. It's not, they said that file share and some of the features would not be available at the Forge beta launch. So it's understandable. It's just disappointing that not everything's there at one time. Co-op campaign is actually more impressive than I thought it would be. It works essentially how you play co-op, and whoever has the least amount of progress within the game, that's where it puts you, story-wise. So if you all load like a file and one person hasn't gotten far enough in the campaign, then it puts them backwards because they haven't gotten that
Okay.
far yet. Yeah. It's very interesting. And it works really well. You know, I think the only thing a little disappointing is since Infinite removed collision boxes, there's no more like, just jumping on top of each other and doing dumb stuff. Like you can still do dumb stuff, but it's like some of the old magic still isn't quite there. And
And I've been seeing people post a lot of Forge stuff on Twitter, even though like God of War just came out.
mhm.
It's surprising that I've been seeing as much Halo as I've been seeing, but I think this update is really the thing that Halo players have been waiting for since launch.
I think Halo Infinite's actually a game now. Is what it
Yeah, yeah.
essentially. Yeah.
This update really kind of made it a game. It made it a full game. I mean, just it's still
Hmm.
in the Forge is still in beta, but it's almost like Halo Infinite just launched,
Hmm.
and it launched alongside some big games this month. It relaunched kind of in the middle of Call of Duty, God of War. I mean, it's like not the best time for it to, but at least it's kind of getting some traction out there. That's it for what we're playing and watching. Tell me a little bit about what you were watching this morning, because that's a pretty big deal.
Okay, so because I don't even know what to call it. I woke up like every Friday. I wake up. I'm ready to watch the new Pokemon episode, and I watched this morning's, and I mean the outcome. It blew up Twitter, right? Like Ash was all over Twitter. He beat Leon in the World Coronation series,
Did you see
and
downtown Tokyo? They were like streaming it on the buildings.
that's actually insane.
Yeah.
I'm not surprised at all though. They have a whole ass holiday called Pikachu Day. But um
Well, let's consider this Pikachu Day because we're kind of celebrating the 25th anniversary of Pokemon, and that's what they
mhm.
were doing in the anime. So I only saw highlights. I mean, I saw a lot of clips, and I didn't actually watch the full episode. So just kind
So
of give us
this
a
is only
summary
the
of it.
last part. This is only like there's four parts to this battle.
Okay.
Part 1 Part 1 featured kind of just like the beginning of things, Ash Gigantamax, Gengar, part 2 Mega evolves Lucario. Like basically like every chapter of like his Pokemon journeys, like the newest iteration of the Pokemon anime. Like he used all of the different battle gimmicks within like each of the episodes. And
So that's
then
kind of how he beat Leon.
essentially but so that's how he beat Leon's other Pokemon. Part 4, Ash was down to just Pikachu. Leon still has Cinderace and Charizard.
Oh, so I didn't know Pikachu beat Cinderace and Charizard.
So Pikachu was already in battle before too, which is kind of nuts. Pikachu was taken back because Cinderace has Libro, the ability Libro,
Yeah.
and changed its typing to ground. So Ash
Okay.
switched Pikachu. Immediately, Leon Gigantamaxes Charizard. Ash uses his Z move, his signature Pikachu Z move. It collides and creates such a big blast that Eternatus comes over, and
What?
then yeah, it's nuts. And Eternatus decides to come over and then grant them a second like Gigantamax. So Leon switches Charizard for Cinderace, and then Gigantamax is Cinderace, and then Ash Gigantamax is Pikachu.
Does he look
Pikachu
like the
one
big
shot
Chungus?
Cinderace
Wow. Yeah. I mean,
with
if any Pokemon can do it, it's
with
Pikachu.
Volt Crash, I believe, like Gmax Volt Crash or whatever Pikachu's signature one is. And then after that, no more Gigantamax. It's just a full on battle between Charizard and Pikachu.
And
And
I've watched that battle like 3 times.
Pikachu collapses, like blacks out, wakes up in like a dream sequence, and you see every single Pokemon throughout all of Ash, like all of the anime episodes, even the ones Ash released, like you see Pidgeot and Butterfree, and you see Larvitar, you see Ambipom, which is another one that like he traded away Ambipom. You see Primeape, and then like it goes through like each generation he went through and everything like that. And there are also a lot of cameos throughout the episode too of like all of the old characters
I saw
throughout the other.
Brock, right?
Yeah, Brock was there, Misty was there, May, Max, Dawn. So it was like I don't know. It like Journeys is kind of more or less a celebration of the Pokemon anime, and
Yeah, the whole premise of Journeys, because when Pikachu gets knocked out and goes into that dream state with all of Ash's previous Pokemon, it's
it's
showing
basically
his
like they're
journey. It
older.
shows
Yeah,
every generation of his Pokemon.
Pikachu fainted essentially, like not fainted, but blacked out, and every Pokemon was like, "No, you got this." It's like we're all here with you, and it's like every single one of his Pokemon like pulled Pikachu from the brinks of death.
Yeah, literally.
Essentially, like revived Pikachu on the spot to like just wake up and kill Charizard.
Go
like
Super
just
Saiyan and kill Charizard.
yeah.
And Ash, after 25 years, has finally become the world champion.
25 is it really years though? Because Ash is still 10 years old.
Yeah, he did it. 25 years later, this 10-year-old did it.
The eternal youth 10-year-old. Must be nice. Yeah.
Well, that was a great way to celebrate the 25th anniversary of Pokemon. And there's also some more Pokemon content coming out during the 25th anniversary, which is Scarlet and Violet comes out in 7 days. So I want to ask you a little bit about your thoughts on the game, but also if you've seen some of the leaks.
I've seen
as
a
in the
lot of the
Pokemon.
leaks. I've seen a
Okay.
lot of the leaks. And I also
What's your thoughts? Give me your first impressions of the leaks.
I'm excited.
Okay.
That's all I gotta say. Is like
Okay.
they're interesting. I don't think there's a design that I just straight up dislike. I think these Pokemon games look very, very interesting. I'm excited because if the one leak that says there's over 10 like 1,000 Pokemon within this universe, then more than like there's
That's the
not
national dex more than likely.
yeah. Yeah, it's more than likely we're getting the national dex. Like all the Pokemon are gonna be here, and it's gonna be great.
Exactly, and I don't see why they wouldn't do that, because now's the time to do it with this is a new engine they're working with, coming off of the previous Pokemon game this year, which we'll talk more about later. But before we talk about that, the leaks themselves, the starters. Let me pitch this to you. The water starter is kind of a water version of Blaziken. The fire one is a fire version of kind of Totodile. The grass one is a dark grass kind of version of Incineroar. What do you think about the typings? Because the water is water fighting, the fire is fire ghost, and then grass is grass dark. So very interesting typings. I'm conflicted on which one I want based on typing. So which one do you like personally for their appearance and kind of the way they're designed? And then which one do you think you're going to go with based off of your previous choices?
I think cosmetically, if we're not talking about the first forms, I think the third form rise definitely fire has the best design of the three.
He has the best design by far of the final three.
Mm-hmm.
I won't say by far. I won't say by far. There's one other one.
The grass looks decent.
I like the grass. I'm actually, I don't know. I don't know which one I'm going for. What do you think about the water? Because I feel like that would be.
I need to see the in-game sprite instead of these, like the poster and the leak pictures and stuff. Because I feel that they just, from the angles that these leaks are showing, it makes it look as terrible as humanly possible. And I'm so hoping it's better than that.
Me too, because he has potential. And did you see that the fire starter is the singer Pokemon, the water is the dancer Pokemon, and then the grass is the magician Pokemon? That's kind of their
performances.
Yeah, that's kind of their whole thing. So I don't really care about the whole singing aspect of Fuecoco, but Ghostfire is such a great typing. I really like the typing of Sprigato's line, the Grass Dark line.
Mm-hmm.
It's a very, very interesting typing. I've been doing some research on it because I might want to jump into
Well,
a
you think
grass
about
version of
it,
Incineroar,
Shiftry is like a
Shiftry,
fake out, yeah,
and
fake out
Zarude.
Pokemon. Yeah,
Yeah,
Zarude as well.
they're immune to powders, and they also have pretty good priority moves. It's it's gonna be a split second decision for me when the game comes out because I just went with grass with Sword and Shield, so I kind of want to go with fire because I'm not really feeling the water, but I'm not sure. Anyways, the leaks were very interesting. Have you seen leaks for the other Pokemon
I've seen a few. I have
like
seen the
Tyranitar?
Okay, the futuristic Tyrant. Is that what
Yes,
you're talking? It looks
yes,
cool. It
yeah.
looks
Did
really
you
cool.
see
I like the
futuristic
primitive
Volcarona?
Donphan. The
Oh yeah,
primitive Donphan.
the Great Tusk. Yeah.
Yep. And then there's also the primitive Primeape, which looks amazing.
Okay. So are you leaning towards Scarlet set in the past?
I pre-ordered Violet, but
Sell out. Okay.
but I do like a lot of the designs of Scarlet more. The reason I got Violet is because I wanted to actually ride a motorcycle and not, a
Run.
legendary Pokemon
Yeah,
that's
legendary
running with
Pokemon that's
it literally
sprinting.
has tires but is running for some reason. I don't know.
I think I'm gonna go with Scarlet. I'm actually gonna get both, but yeah, the leaks of the Pokemon were cool. I like that they're doing the past versions of some and then the futuristic versions of others. Like futuristic Volcarona, that's gonna be on my team. This game has a lot of cool features. Is there anything specific about the game that you like that hasn't happened in previous games? Like, let's say the research aspect with you being out of school, or the what are they called? Like almost the enemy camps that you infiltrate with your
hmm
Pokemon in the overworld.
I don't know how many camps it is, but it's basically like it's like they have their you choose to do them at your own pace, I believe. And it's like they have like their own like Team Rocket arc kind of mission
Yeah.
thing that you can like go and then there's also the gym challenge, and then there's also like the Arceus like style like wild Pokemon expedition stuff.
So, are you looking to play it like a traditional Pokemon game, or are you looking forward to the new aspects?
I think as I go through it, I'll just figure out like that's usually what I would do with Pokemon. Like I figure out how I want to play the game as I go through it. Honestly, like whatever is introduced to me first, or if they introduce all three and say, "Yeah, go ahead," that I'm gonna be like, "Huh." Like I think I'd be eager to do the gym challenge the fastest.
It's going to be interesting. I guess a lot
hmm
of our excitement comes from just figuring out what this game is.
Yeah.
We're a week away, and they just released a trailer that showed literally nothing but a few of the like regional versions of the Mons.
hmm
I want to ask you, where do you think this Generation 9, is going to rank among the other gens? But before we do that, let's rank the Pokemon generations. This is going to be
Yeah.
the most biased
Yeah.
thing.
I'll do this by bias. And my number one, like, are you just talking as a whole, as each generation as a whole, from like
Yes.
games, shows,
Yes.
everything?
Each
Like,
generation.
okay, so if you talk about like these gaps in times, and obviously, like, I
You have more
Gen 3
experience
time.
with all of the
hmm
gens than I do.
Yeah, so essentially, at the top of my list, I'm putting Gen 3. I literally have
Okay.
to, between Coliseum and XD being some of the best spin offs, Ruby and Sapphire, the soundtrack, the trumpets, Emerald with the Battle Frontier, there's so much, and then Leaf Green and Fire Red being very good remakes, and
Yeah.
and it's a great gen overall. I think Gen 3, I don't think you can beat how much they did and how much was going on
Yeah.
with
The quality
Pokemon
of
at that
content.
time. There's just so much, and I have to put Gen 3 on the top of the list. Like
All right. Gen 3.
the designs as well. The designs as well. Oh my god, they're so good.
What
Yeah, I'm gonna
what
put 3 on top. I'm gonna put
yeah, what's
5
close?
as my second. I'm gonna put 5
Okay.
as my second, and this is just because of the quality of the games.
I hear the stories are great.
The stories are great. The gameplay is great. Obviously, the Pokemon designs aren't the best, which like this is coming from a like the content wasn't really there, but I think like the quality and how great these games were, and it's probably the biggest addition Pokemon has ever done. There was so many new Pokemon in Generation 5. Like it was
Yeah.
a big addition.
It was almost like a reboot to the series.
Yeah, it was supposed to be, but like obviously Black 2 and White 2 happened and they're like, okay, maybe people didn't like this reboot because everyone's like the competitive Pokemon's coming up. Everyone's just using their migrated Pokemon with, Rayquaza and all this other stuff's just coming back. So it's like, okay, obviously they didn't like our reboot to the series. But and like a lot of people publicly complaining about the designs, like, oh, it's an ice cream cone, or a lot of kind of that. But I think Gen 5, from a quality perspective, in my opinion, I think is like the second best gen.
Okay, so to round out your top three, what's your next one? It's a tough choice.
3 is very like the number 3 spot's very hard because to me it's a tie between 1 and 4. And
That's
I
fair.
think 4 is what started competitive Pokemon. Like that was the I think Gen 4
With
gave
the
birth to the
DS.
competitive.
Yeah.
Yeah. Not even just the DS, the new Pokemon, the items, like it was just I think Gen 4 gave birth to competitive Pokemon. Um it gave birth to wireless connection stuff, like it
Yeah.
made it
Yeah.
was more accessible to trade, and you didn't need these wires. You didn't there's also Battle Revolution had Wi-Fi battles. That was a big
Yeah.
Diamond
That
and
was
Pearl and
huge.
Platinum also had Wi-Fi battles. Like that was a big. It's like, oh, you can now battle online. It's nuts. Even though it was very laggy, it was still you could battle with Pokemon online and compete. I think I have to put Gen 4 in my number 3 spot just because of how
All
much
right.
it did for the franchise.
I like it. 3, 5, 4.
hmm
Top three. And
My next
then
one's obviously 1.
okay, then 1. We
Yes, I would say
and
1. For 1, it's the beginning of the
it's
series.
the start.
It's the start,
Everybody knows Gen 1.
the
Yeah.
original 151, Charizard, all it's nostalgia, it's great. After 1, I'm gonna I'm going to say 6. It had Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire as reboots. Decent reboots. Mega Evolution was very flashy and cool.
Yeah,
So,
Megas were a good introduction to switch up the series. And that
yeah.
was I think still to this day Megas are one of the best things to happen to the battle aspect of the game.
Yeah, I think I would put 6 next because if you put X and Y as like the standalone titles and that's all you think about with Gen 6,
Yeah.
I think like it's like, oh, okay, maybe this is no, not Gen 6 yet. But I think like OROS and X and Y, you put that in the same category, and I think Gen 6 did pretty damn good.
Okay. I never played it, so there's a
Mhm.
few of these that I haven't played, so
Next, I'm putting 8 down there. I think 8 is literally peak competitive.
8 had a lot going for it.
Yeah, it had like literally the raid battles, the raid dens, tons. Like Dynamax was probably the most fair and balanced
Yeah.
battle gimmick yet. Yeah,
There's a lot of
the DLCs made the
variety.
game's lifespan last longer.
Great DLCs too.
And
So,
next
yeah,
after
you got
8,
two
I'm
more.
going to put. I'm. I really hate to do this, but I'm gonna put 7 with Sun and Moon,
Oh,
Ultra Sun and Moon.
okay. You put 7
I
and then your
2
last
is
one
definitely last. 2 is
is
definitely
2.
last.
Okay.
I think 2 just didn't offer that much. We had new evolutions for a few Pokemon, starters, and then
I kind
legendaries.
of agree with you, yeah.
there wasn't
Now,
much that Silver and Gold had to offer. Like it was cool. Like Lugia was awesome. Ho-Oh was
yeah,
really cool. And like the new story was really cool, but like it has the shortest story of like any Pokemon game. Gold and Silver just isn't it's not a long story. It's very, very quick. The rival is very one dimensional. I don't know, it's just not there. It's not
and
there.
a
And
lot of your takes I agree with, just because I haven't
mhm.
been into it as much or as long as you. So I can't really disagree with any of that, except the fact my rankings are going to be different based on bias, and there's some I haven't played. So going off the ones that I've played, 4 is going to be my top, of course. I'm a big fan of history and lore and all of that, and Arceus and the origin of Pokemon were introduced in 4. I love that aspect. On top of that, great game, great story, great Pokemon. Still to this day has one of the best Pokemon games in that generation, which is Platinum. And then my second place would be Gen 3, because that has arguably one of the greatest games in that generation too, which is Emerald. So I would go 4, 3, and then I'm biased, then 8. Like you were saying, it has so much variety, so many Pokemon, so many aspects of the game, where they introduced co-op, but also co-op raids, so many, battling features. All the Pokemon that were in 8, I mean, you had a lot to pick from compared to some of the other generations. So I would go 4, 3, 8, and then just going off the ones I've played. After that, I would go Gen 1, and then I would go Gen 2, and then I'd have to go with Gen 7 just because I've played it, and I never played 5 or 6, but Gen 7 is definitely at the bottom for me. I'd have to go back and play
Well, technically, you
White
played
and X and
6
Y.
with Alpha, like Omega Ruby, Alpha Sapphire. That's Gen
Okay.
6.
I
Yeah.
would just loop that into Gen 3. And I didn't play too, like, I just kind of casually played through it.
Hmm.
I would like to play the mainline, the mainline games in Gen 5 and 6, but my list is a little bit more biased. But before we end this
Hmm.
section of ranking the gens and all of this, Generation 9, where do you think it's going to land among the rankings?
For me, at least, I think
Top 3. I think it's going to be top 3. I think it has to be.
it may take over Gen 4 for me. Like,
Okay. So it'll be your third, break your top 3.
yeah,
Okay, that's fair. I think
it would
it
be
will.
3, 5, and then 9.
I think it. I don't know. It's for me. It's going to be either spot 2 or 3. I mean, if it doesn't surpass Gen 8, I will be shocked. So it
I
has a
honestly
lot
don't think there's a way it
to
can't.
lose.
Like, I don't think it
I
can't.
know.
Like,
If it doesn't, it's going to be it's going to be a devastation. We're only a week away from that though, and then we can jump in and experience it. All right, are you ready for the topic of the show? It's going to be a
of
fun one.
course.
All right. Let's talk about Sonic a little bit and how Sonic is inadvertently tied to Pokemon. I'll go with this article from VGC.com. It's a review. The headline is, "It may be tempting to compare Sonic Frontiers to Legend of the Zelda Breath of the Wild, but the latest Sega platformer actually has more in common with a different Nintendo exclusive." And I'm reading from the article, quote, "As a neat bookend to 2022, Frontiers reminds us a lot more of Pokemon Legends Arceus, which was released back in January. That ended up being the first big surprise of the year, followed by Game of the Year contender, Elden Ring, and then Frontiers being one of the last big surprises of the year, following after Game of the Year contender God of War Ragnarok. However, much like Pokemon, parts of the Sonic fanbase have been crying out for fundamental changes to the series for some time now. Both series had nestled a little too comfortably into a predictable formula, and despite new gimmicks and generational upgrades, it had been too long since either had enjoyed any truly revolutionary gameplay revamps. Pokemon's solution was to go properly open world, giving the players true freedom to explore its environments, with quality of life improvements. And then, with Sonic Frontiers, Sega has come to almost exactly the same solution, and the results are just as satisfyingly refreshing. All right, so before I go on, a little bit more with the article. What do you think about the comparison of the Sonic franchise, evolving into this more open world adventure, sort of how they did with the Pokemon series this year? They were in the same cycle year after year of very similar titles. And now this year, they both kind of had this big step, this evolution into an open world formula. And it paid off. And you've played both these games, so you can kind of talk to how Arceus switched up the formula for Pokemon. So let's just start there while we're on it. Explain a little bit about how Arceus feels like a Pokemon game, even though they decided to go this direction with it.
I'm gonna be honest. I don't think that it's necessarily the formula that was like really switched up, because I think like what Arceus is essentially is like a much bigger. It's like basically you have 4 wild areas from like Sword and Shield, right? That's
Okay.
basically what it is. There's like 4 wild areas. You can fly around it. You can do all of this other stuff. But I think it's like how story driven it is, and how it's about the Pokemon and these new mechanics, and like you could get hurt by the Pokemon. Like it had like obviously like a lot of like Breath of the Wild, aspects to it. Like people compare it, they call it the Breath of the Wild of Pokemon, just like they call Frontiers now the Breath of the Wild of the Sonic franchise. There was just something about Arceus that was just like, it was just good. It was fun. It felt like an actual like modern RPG instead of.
You're saying this worked for the series, the Pokemon franchise.
Yeah, it really did. It became.
Okay.
I think Arceus literally became about catching them all. Like that's what it literally was. Is Pokemon got to catch them all. Is what that game was. It
Okay.
wasn't. It wasn't beat the gyms. Beat the champion. This, and this. Like it was about all of this lore. And like all of these surprises, and it's just obviously
And
there's
you've
like quests, and you got to catch the Pokemon, and like there's a lot. It's a very brilliant game.
Yeah, I agree. And you've played Sonic Frontiers as well. Sonic Frontiers is a step in the right direction for the Sonic series, because they are also going open world with a game that embraces Sonic. You're speeding through an open world. What's your experience with it? It's about, to me, it looks like they're finally giving Sonic that freedom and speed that he's known for.
Maybe not necessarily. Like it doesn't feel like he's faster in any sense. It just feels like this is the way a Sonic game is supposed to be played. Like
Okay.
is how it's supposed to feel. Well, ever since after Sonic the Hedgehog 2006, since after that, it's just been, the boost formula games that are very, very simple and very one dimensional and very. And a lot of them just feel like copy pasted formula games. And yeah, like Unleashed is praised a lot because the hub world is interesting and the level design is pretty good. But it's still this like that colors, even forces are just like these generations you can even loop into that mix. They all feel like a very similar game. I think now that like what that article was saying, it does have a point, because Sonic has felt a little dry. The formula has been like recycled since like after that. Like they've been playing it safe, and now Sonic's not playing
Yeah.
it safe. They're trying something new, and it's great. Like it's the best
It's
it's been for a very long time.
Yeah, he puts it in here. It's satisfyingly refreshing. And I can't wait to jump in because it looks refreshing. It looks like how Sonic should be. And it's not necessarily a Sonic Adventure 3, but it's a love
Hmm.
letter to those games like you were talking about. It isn't like Unleashed or Forces or that formula, but it's also not like the Adventures games or even '06, while it's
Hmm.
still open world. So
Yeah, it's still
the art,
Sonic. I think the Sonic franchises, that's where their successes like always seem to be coming from, because people still liked Heroes, people liked Adventure, but it always felt like every Sonic game was something different. Like it had something different to offer. The core gameplay was different, or the level design was different. And then like it felt like every single new Sonic game had something new to offer. And then like 06 happened, every game felt like it was just another, two-dimensional Sonic game.
Yeah, they were definitely afraid of switching up the formula after '06, and it's been such a long time that I think they finally realized that that's what needed to happen for this franchise.
Mm-hmm.
And then you mentioned level design. I want to know kind of the difference between the open world versus the linear stages. There's a part in this article where he says, quote, "In Frontiers, the open world is very much the star of the show. The stages, while welcome, aren't necessarily needed and almost feel as if they've been put in there to keep the hardcore fans happy," end quote.
I feel that is the case because what essentially the levels are, right? There's these portals. You go into them and you go into a cyberspace level to get these keys. And it's essentially just like a very quick stage. It's like a Sonic Forces, maybe a little longer than the Sonic Forces level, but like it's a very short and sweet, like to the point stage. It's like designed after Green Hill or Speed Highway or Chemical Plant or Sky Sanctuary, like these classic levels and stuff like that. It's kind of just like a nod to the old fans, essentially. The article literally puts it on point of what that is. Um, it just nods to the nostalgia. It's like, hey, this is part of the game, and it's actually not we still have levels. Like there's still levels within the game. They're just not the core to the gameplay.
Yeah, I'm interested to see how Sonic feels in that open world area, especially because, this is something we've been wanting since actually the very first Sonic Adventure game.
We had a taste of it in the Mystic Ruins. Like,
That's the gameplay aspect. How's the story?
so I'm not that deep into it,
Okay.
but it does go off of like essentially like there is like a prologue with what happens to Knuckles, but like Sonic basically I think so far what I've collected is Eggman has designed like this new type of like
It has something to do with cyberspace, right?
yeah, he just like and it has to do with like I believe the android he made, which is that the like red and
Sage?
black girl, yeah, Sage. And she basically tries to use these titans to prevent Sonic from saving his friends within it. Because every time Sonic saves one of his friends, he gets like corrupted with the cyberspace
Who,
stuff.
Sonic?
Yeah, and he gets like
Okay.
he starts getting sick like in the
Oh,
third.
wow. That's
Yeah.
very interesting. I had no idea about that. That's okay. So I'm going to go back to the article. Quote, "Sonic games are usually infamous for having storylines that range from awful to forgettable, but Frontiers tells a compelling story with a new main character, Sage, who will continually keep players intrigued until the final, surprising reveal. Without getting into any other details, while this may not be Sonic Adventure 3, fans of the Dreamcast titles will be happy
Hmm.
to see some acknowledgement here." So,
So
yeah, we
you know
made the
what the big
connection.
acknowledgement is? Okay,
Yeah,
the
what is that?
Cocos. The Cocos are actually just like they are basically they're ghosts. Is what the Cocos are,
Okay.
and they were all chaos beings. Like you know who the Chaos Zero? They all look like
Yeah.
that. Yeah, they're
Okay.
all people in the past. They're called the Ancients, and they all
Okay.
looked like Chaos Zero did.
So this is
Which,
almost a spiritual successor to the first adventure game.
mm-hmm,
Okay. Yeah, I like that. That's why it does feel like there is some acknowledgement there for hardcore
mm-hmm.
fans that have been around since the Genesis and Dreamcast
Yep, and there's
especially with
also
the
like
adventures.
in each of these islands, there's Chaos Emerald shrines, and like
Yeah.
throughout it, Sonic questions. He's like, these shrines are made to look like they're to protect the Chaos Emeralds, not to like harness their power or something like that. So it looks like possibly that the like I haven't completed the game yet, but it looks like maybe possibly the Chaos Emeralds, their origins are from this land or whatever else is going
Yeah.
on. Like
And there is some
it's
deep
very
lore.
interesting. Hmm.
Yeah, and that's what really draws me into games. Sonic has been missing that for such a long time. That's one reason I really love Sonic '06. It has a lot of lore and story into it. So I'm glad to see this game is capitalizing on the actual rich lore of Sonic games. And I think one reason they're doing that is because they have the people writing the current run of Sonic the Hedgehog IDW comics working on the story and lore for Sonic Frontiers. Sonic's back.
Yeah.
So
he's back, and regardless
back.
what these scores say, I think these scores were just expecting perfection, right? They're
and I was just about to
expecting-
get into the scores because not to sit here and debate if it's whatever out of 10, but
Mhm.
I feel like this article's fair, and they say they give it 4 out of 5 stars.
Yeah,
And I
but
could
I've
see
seen
that
like a
being
lot of things
great
that say
for
like
Sonic.
68 out of 100.
I've seen websites giving it lower scores than Forces. I was gonna put that into the show and somehow talk about it, but
Now, did they
that's
only play the
ridiculous.
Switch version or something? Like,
I couldn't tell you, and we haven't completed the game, so we're not gonna score it ourselves. But I feel like 4 out of 5 stars is great for a Sonic game, and that's
that's saying something. Like,
that's saying something. All right, do you have any final words about Sonic Frontiers?
definitely get it when you can. Like, just get that game, play it.
I'm gonna get it
support
soon.
this game. Get these copies sold. Let Sonic Team and Sega know that this game is doing Sonic justice. We want more of this Sonic. We don't want more Forces Sonic. We don't want more of all of that. All of that garbage. We want this garbage. We want this. This is the tasty garbage. We're the raccoons, and this is the garbage we prefer.
That's so funny. We don't want the McDonald's dumpster.
Yeah, exactly.
We want the Five Guys dumpster.
Exactly. Yeah, that's the best way to do it. That's the best way to say that.
That's perfect. That's our take on Sonic Frontiers. All right, so let's just close out the show. This is the Senate Podcast. Like I said, you can find us on streaming platforms, also on Discord. Check the description. You'll find links on Linktree. With that, give us the final words. See what I did there?
Yeah. So every other Sunday, we do live sessions called the High Council. It is with us at the Senate. Us and the crew, all together, just having a good time. And you can always find that live on Twitch. We upload those to YouTube on Fridays.
Yeah, it's a nice, supplement to the podcast. And I think we had some good takes today and analyses of Pokemon and Sonic, 2 titans that came out this year, among others. Among us.
That sounds a little sus.
Until next time. Sayonara, Shadow the Hedgehog.
You had to pick one of the most cringe ones possible.